Hi, and welcome to Dear Art Producer. I am your host, Heather Elder, and today is October 4th, 2022, and we are joined by Nicole Schiavo, Associate Producer at DDB Chicago. She's been in her role for 6 months now, and in her free time, Nicole is an avid foodie and enjoys cooking and baking new recipes. Hello and welcome today, Nicole. How are you?
Hi, Heather. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm empty nesting and I'm surviving. So that's good. My last son just went to college, so I'm kind of out in the world with a bit more freedom, which is nice. And you mentioned that it was getting a little bit cold in Chicago, and where I am, it is just downpouring, and it has been for the last few days. I feel like Hurricane Ian has come to visit us.
Oh my goodness, what a bummer. Well, congratulations on the empty nesting. I know that's exciting.
Yes.
And sorry to hear about the rain.
Oh, that's
That's
okay. It feels good coming from San Francisco and being in a drought. It's kind of nice to see the rain. So,
okay.
and when you and I saw each other last was one of my first trips, kind of post COVID, out to kind of show work and bop around the country. And I had the best time in Chicago. Everybody you work with is amazing, and it was just such a fun trip. So, thank you for making me feel so welcome.
Oh my gosh, of course. And it was so great to meet you. It's always nice to see people in person and, get in and be able to talk face to face.
Definitely. And your team speaks so highly of you. So it was
Oh,
great to put a face with the name. So,
thank you.
um, well, one thing I like to talk about is, how producers find their way to their current job, because it really isn't very linear.
Mhm.
And I think it would be really interesting to hear a little bit about how you found your way to DDB and into production.
Yeah, so I have been at DDB full time for 6 months now. I graduated from college with my undergraduate degree last March, and I studied advertising there. And we kind of did like an overview in the program of like all the different roles you could find at an agency. And I was lucky enough to have a job shadowing experience where I got to kind of see like those roles play out on like a day-to-day basis. And I spent time with a producer and just thought it was really exciting how fast-paced everything was, and how every day seemed to be different. And there's a lot of like challenges and collaboration, and just working together with your teammates to try to figure everything out. So my junior year rolled around and I applied for all sorts of production internships, and I wound up at DDB. I was a remote intern and still had a really, really great experience. I got to shadow all sorts of like calls and meetings and sit and edit sessions and color sessions. And that just made me even more excited. And so that following fall, I went back to school to finish my degree. Kept in touch with everybody, and the timing worked out, and there happened to be a spot back at DDB for an associate. So that's kind of where I got to where I am today.
Oh, that's so great. Your enthusiasm for our industry is, I'm sure, very much appreciated at DDB. After COVID and all the crazy changes we've had. So it's really awesome to hear how excited you are about your role. And it's also exciting to hear that when you were in college, that schools were teaching about the production aspect of what we do. So that when you actually shadowed, you kind of had a bit of a heads up. So that's nice.
Yeah, it wasn't super in detail about production, I'd say. Like our curriculum was mostly focused on creative, but as soon as I learned about kind of like what the role was, I just went for it and tried to learn as much as I could.
That's great. Well, tell me a bit about what you're known for on your team, or what you're valuing and, realizing you're good at on your team. Maybe they're two separate things. I'm not sure.
Sure. So I would say I'm definitely still in the process of establishing myself. But what's really fabulous about being an associate producer at DDB is they're really trying to make sure we're integrated. So since I've started, I have gained experience in print, digital, social, some post for broadcast work. So it's been really exciting. And I actually just wrapped up a project where I produced a 6-second OLV with some animation, print work, and digital work. So it was a really great full circle moment where I realized, hey, I can do, all these three mediums, and that's really exciting. So I would say that that's kind of how I'm hoping to establish myself is to be like as integrated as I can be and get as much experience as I can with all of kind of the different areas of production. I
Well,
hope that
that's
answered
yeah,
it.
no, it's good. And it's so important because I feel like being a producer requires that. You have to understand, every aspect of what's happening on production and coming right, out of the gate, wanting all of those different experiences is only going to, propel you further. So that's great. So tell me a little bit about what it is to be an associate art producer, um, at your level and the amount of time that you've spent there. Are people just kind of handing you things and asking you to help and you're learning that way? Or do you really have specific job responsibilities?
Yeah, so all of the associate producers are assigned to an executive producer, but we're also technically part of the pool, so we can float from account to account. But my EP, who has been such a fabulous mentor that I've been working under, has been getting me on the majority of her projects in a support role.
That's
And if there's no active role for me to play, I'm able to follow along and learn. So it's been really great experience to be, supporting with the digital aspect of like a bigger, 360 campaign or supporting with the print or both, or just kind of being along for the ride and learning how the process works. So I would say a little bit of both. I kind of run my own projects, be it like something a little bit smaller or something that's a larger piece of a campaign. And then I just try to follow along as much as I can with every, be it the larger project that I'm on and what like the broadcast portion of that looks like, or just kind of anything else that's available for me to observe.
well, and gosh, do you have amazing executive producers to be surrounded by there? I mean, your mentors and people you're learning from are top of their game. So that's fantastic for you.
Yeah, everybody is so wonderful. I have to say, I feel so well supported and couldn't think of, a more amazing group of people to learn from.
Oh, okay. So let's talk some about let's kind of start at the beginning, of the process. And I would say the first step in that is probably choosing the artist. What role do you play in that? And what does the process look like for you in reviewing and sharing them with your team and all of that?
Yeah, so I'm actually just doing that for the first time now.
Okay.
So that's very exciting. So I'm establishing my own process, but I'm under a senior producer for this right now. So also following kind of his recommendations and his process as well. So we kind of took a look at some folks that would be a good fit for the project. And we reviewed them on our own, reached out, had calls, got some work samples, and put those up against like kind of the vision for the production. And we kind of placed them in I put it all in like a big Google Doc with, links and explanations and sent that off to our creative team for review. And they took a look over, they provided us comments, what they liked, what they didn't like. And we're actually in the process of scheduling some calls this week to meet with our vendor folks and our creative teams. So that's another first for me, and I'm very excited to do that.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Well, the creative call is so important. It'll be interesting. Maybe we'll have to follow up and do another interview with you in a few months to see the range of creative calls that I'm sure will, be sitting on, having represented many different photographers and directors over the years. I've sat on so many creative calls, and everybody just has their own different style and approach. And some are really great listeners. Others are really great at asking questions. Some are, good at the banter. But I know it's just so incredibly important. It's such a crucial part of the process, especially for, the vendors at that point to show enthusiasm for the project. So it'll be interesting to see what you learn during that process for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I have to say, I know a lot of producers will say every day is different, but I really do enjoy that. And I feel like I'm learning something new almost every day, which is awesome.
I also think it's really cool to get them on Zoom, like you're going to be on set with them. You're going to be in the trenches of production with them. There's going to be, some tense moments, some exciting moments. It's a lot of collaboration. So I think, having them on Zoom and sensing their energy and their enthusiasm, and I just think is really important.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's talk a little bit about estimating.
Yeah.
How, I'm guessing you're obviously shadowing your executive producer during this process. And I'm wondering, in the projects that you've been working on, have you developed a point of view yet on, do you share the budget with the client or with the photographer or director, or do you hold that back? Like, how has that experience been for you?
So right now, that's another kind of component that I'm definitely still learning. I will say it's about like half and half. It kind of just depends on the project. I think that it varies. Sometimes I am given a budget and kind of a target range to stay in. So I will share that out if I have it. And if I don't, sometimes I just don't share it.
Yeah, I think, from where I sit, knowing the estimate or knowing the budget obviously is super important. However, we also recognize it's not always possible, especially in our integrated world where you might have a big pot of money. It's most likely a small pot of money, but you have a pot of money and you need to figure out how much is going to go to motion or how much is going to go to stills or what's going to go to digital, like all of that, the post-production. And it's not easy to kind of divide it up ahead of time. I know a lot of art producers are really good at kind of divvying up the pot a little bit and then kind of sharing and moving things around as needed. But I think if I could give you any advice at this part in your career, why it's important to know something, especially with clients I haven't worked with before, is because it tells me if we're on the same page. So if I get a call from DDB and they tell me, we're going to be bidding a job, I know you guys understand the value of production. I know that our estimates and our budgets, even if I come in high, you're going to come back to me. We will have an opportunity for back and forth. If I have a random client that I have never met before, or I've never worked with before, and they say, oh yeah, we have a good budget. And then I spend all this time on creative calls and working on budgets and treatments. And then I share it with them and they're like, oh, we only had $25,000. Mm-hmm. Okay, I thought you had a good budget. And they're like, yeah, that is a good budget. It's like, oh, okay, we have a different point of view of what that is. Mm-hmm. So it's always helpful to just mostly know that we're on the same page.
Good to know. That's really valuable. I'll keep that one in my back pocket for later. It's definitely an interesting thing to navigate because, everybody has their own style and I'm finding that it's like varying from project to project, but knowing that it's very helpful to at least like give as much information as I can. I'll definitely keep that in mind.
We had an interesting conversation yesterday with an art producer on a job that we're working on, estimating. We haven't gotten the job yet. And I just kind of followed up with her and I asked her where, how our bid looks in front of somebody else. And she replied that we were significantly higher. And I was like, wow, that's a lot. Like the word significantly means we're a lot. And I was just like, can you tell me how much or where? And she said, well, I can't really tell you how much more, but I can tell you that you're, she gave me some specs of something that we included. She's like, nobody else included that. And I think you're overthinking it. And I was like, wow, that is so helpful and insightful. So it allowed me the opportunity to go back and remove a big chunk of what we were doing on the bid so that we were more in line with the other people, which was great because otherwise, my guess is we were probably $100,000 over. And like, sometimes you can't recover from that. So it was nice to be able to have that kind of transparent conversation with her. Well, tell me a little bit about usage and where that comes up in the conversation for you.
Yeah. So I think that it's been like an interesting kind of point of conversation for me as I'm learning to navigate like the print, social, digital, video world, because that can sometimes vary from motion and print. So I would give that a solid work in progress for me.
Like
and I'm learning more about it every single day, like from stock to things that were shot, on set, to everything in between. So learning more every day about that one.
Well, when we get off, I'm going to remind you, and I'll remind all of our listeners that the Artist Management Association, which is artistmanagementassociation.org, has a usage glossary that you can access and look at. And it's not behind the paywall, so you'd be able to see it. And so if you ever had a question about what a certain usage is, you can go find kind of the official definition there. So clients and agencies have found it really helpful to look at. So I'll make sure to send you that link.
Thank you. That is amazing.
You're
I'm
welcome.
all for helpful links and glossaries and feel like we need like a production dictionary at this point.
Yeah,
so I will definitely be sharing that around to my fellow production peeps too.
Now, what about production consultants? Do you ever work with them?
I have not worked with a production consultant quite yet. I understand kind of what they do, but that is something I have yet to experience on a project.
You have some amazing production consultants in Chicago who have come from your great agencies there. And I feel like they are really doing a great job of making production consultants more a part of the process in a positive way. They used to be called sometimes they are still called cost consultants, but these particular women have been pushing to call themselves production consultants because they're so much more involved in it. So if you ever find yourself working with them, I'm sure the women, the executive producers that are at your agency know who they are, and there's so much to learn from them, and they're really valuable at their job.
That's awesome. Well, I will definitely look out for them. And I think that I'm sure the time will come. So exciting.
How about treatments? Are you involved in that?
I haven't been involved firsthand, but I have seen a bunch. That was one thing that one of the first things actually on my second day of my internship at DDB, I was able to take a look at some treatments for a handful of spots. And I was just amazed. I love just the care and craft and storytelling that goes into them. And just how personal and just beautifully curated, I think every treatment I've ever seen has been. So I have yet to experience firsthand, but the ones I have seen have been really great. I look forward to the day that I get to request them on my own.
Well, and they're so time consuming. We got a really wonderful email from someone today who just received a treatment from one of our photographers. And it was really cute. It was from the art producer. And she replied saying, "Oh my God, I'm in the meeting with the team right now. Your treatment just came in." And the creative director can't help herself. She's just oohing and ahhing. And she's so excited about the treatment. And I replied back and I was like, "Oh my God, this is the nicest and most fun email to get." I'm like, we spend so much time on these treatments, and we put, the photographers mostly put their heart and soul in it. They practically produce the job before they're even awarded the job. And they're so connected to it. And a lot of times we don't hear any feedback, or we just hear thanks, good, yep, looked good. So to have that kind of real time enthusiasm for the treatment was so positive and went such a long way. So when you finally find yourself reviewing the treatments, just like, give a little extra love for what was put into them, and it will just go for a long way.
That's awesome. Good to know. And always exciting to hear positive feedback too, I bet.
Always. And it's just, people move so fast. So it's not like they don't want to give a good feedback, or share some positive words or even give some constructive criticism. They're just like moving at a million miles an hour, and, just they don't have time to do that.
Yeah. That's awesome. I feel like I'm learning so much from you.
Oh,
And just like this short time we've been chatting, this has been awesome.
Good. Okay, let's talk now about the selection process, right? You've done the creative call, or you've shared the links, your creatives have chosen people, you've done the creative calls, you've done the bids and the budgeting and the treatments, and now the job's being awarded. Do you find in your experience that your teams are recommending who they want to the client and the client is taking their recommendations? Or are you finding that you've got three amazing choices and everybody needs to be happy with whoever they present, and then the client chooses, or it's a collaborative moment? What has your experience been with that?
Yeah, so this is another new one. So I haven't been firsthand involved in the award process so far. That should be coming up soon for me, though, in a couple weeks on one of my projects. But that's interesting to know that there's kind of like two paths. In your experience, I'm going to like ask you a question actually. In your experience, is it usually one or the other? Does it vary by agency? Or like, do you know, or are you kind of involved in that?
It's such a relevant question right now, because years ago, if we were the recommend for a project, it's pretty much determined that you would get the project, right? Assuming that it got approved and was happening and all of that, right? So if you're the agency recommend, the agency is going to go in and they're going to sell you, and you would get the project, and you're so excited. Nowadays, I don't want to know that I'm the agency recommend. I feel like it's a bit of a death wish and you're a bit jinxed, because what's happening is, the competition has gotten very intense, and there are really amazing options out there. And you're not going to choose, you're going to bid three people. You're not going to just choose a random three people. Like, you're going to obviously choose three really good people. And the clients are wanting to have a bit more say in that process. So you've got three great people doing three great treatments, presenting three really strong estimates. And even though the agency might have a point of view and they might say, we really want to work with this person, the client might say, oh, but I've worked with this person before. Oh, that person has the exact shot in their treatment. Or, oh, this person's bid, they're shooting in this place, and, that's my hometown, or whatever. And whatever the client is saying, because all three are relatively equal, the team is starting to decide, and this isn't at every agency, it varies, and it also varies by job. The team is like, okay, yeah, we're collaborating with the client, they should get to choose. So being the recommend always feels good, but doesn't always, the outcome is not always what you would think.
Interesting. Well, that's a great explanation. And thank you for taking the time to explain that.
Really, good luck. It'd be interesting to see, now that it's kind of in your mind, it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds for you,
Yeah. I feel like maybe if you're open to it, we will have to do a part two, because I'll have so many things like blanks I can kind of fill in here.
I love that. Well, what about marketing to you? People must be marketing to you in terms of finding you on LinkedIn and getting your email address and sending you promos, is at least email promos. Is that happening for you?
Yeah, that happens a lot. I would say it's like 50-50 in my work email and then also on LinkedIn.
And are there any messages that are kind of rising to the top for you?
I would say that I pay a little bit more attention to the LinkedIn messages, just because I get like so many emails. I feel like that sounds so bad. And also another thing that came to mind is our agency's been doing vendor screenings. lately. So actually getting to meet people in person definitely puts them at the top of my mind as well. Kind of like with you, you came in, that put you at the top of my mind, and I read all your newsletters.
Oh, good. That's nice to hear. I try
So I
to make
think,
them relevant.
yeah, I think that also, I definitely like the personalization. Like it's always nice to, if a rep or somebody's reaching out to me and they like, I can tell the message has been kind of personalized. That's always nice too. I would say that I have so much to learn about artists and the different kinds of artists and just like all of the pieces of the puzzle for production, that it's really important for me to take time when I have it to review, like the newsletters and the websites and the emails. So I would say right now it's all pretty helpful to me.
Yeah, and I would be interested when we do your part two to learn what sort of organization comes out of the next few months for you in terms of keeping track of the reps and the artists and the type of work. And I'm always fascinated by people who like, well, I have a Google sheet, or I have a Google Doc, or oh, I use bookmarks, or all these different ways of kind of keeping track of all the information that comes at you, because there's a lot, and there's going to be people that you like and you gravitate to, and those that you don't. So that'll be a question for the future, how you ended up organizing all of this, since obviously we don't have file cabinets and mailed promos anymore.
Yeah, I would say right now it's a very like not super great or like super well organized, but I keep like a kind of a list on Google Docs at this point. But we do sometimes get like things mailed to the office, like promos. It's not often, but if we do have them, I do like to look at those, and sometimes I
Those
hate
are
to
really
do
fun.
them.
And you can,
They
I feel like they're few and far between right now, and anybody who's spending the money and the time to do them is making them really special. So
Yeah, I would have to agree.
if anybody comes into the office, obviously that would be when they come and present and share work with you.
Yes, definitely. And usually, we've been having, like I said, vendor screenings a little bit more lately, so that's been nice, and it seems to be working out well with our in-office schedule as well too.
That's great. And what do those look like? And when you say vendor screenings, you don't mean like Zoom meetings. You mean they're actually coming in and sharing work with you.
Yeah, sometimes it's a Zoom, sometimes it's people actually coming in. So like last week, we had a gentleman come in and we all got into a conference room and we watched this presentation. We were able to ask questions in live time, which was really exciting. Kind of fun to not have to type them in a chat. So a little bit of both, but we've been getting a lot more like in person, which is awesome.
Yeah, us too. I'm really enjoying that. I think, before COVID, I would lug around all the portfolios and the promos, and I would need a big conference room and I would set them all up, and people would come flow in and out and look at the printed work. And, we'd have iPads for motion and stuff, just like every other rep. And it was really great. Like I was starting to figure out how I wanted to evolve that before COVID hit. And now that I'm back out, we definitely have portfolios, but we're saving those for big events like Le Book and things like that, where, lots of people are kind of coming in and out. And when I'm going to the agencies, I'm doing these presentations like I did with you guys. And what I'm loving about that is what you just said, like the fact that you get to ask questions. We have a captive audience, and you're focused on what I'm showing you rather than just kind of flipping through a book and talking at the same time or whatever, and then pulling a promo or two. So I'm finding them they're unique. So they're interesting and exciting to people. Who knows, ask me in 6 months what that looks like. But I am really enjoying that evolution of the portfolio show for me right now.
That's really interesting. And I bet it's kind of fun that you can individualize the experience a little bit
Definitely.
too.
Absolutely. Because there's some, places that I'll go that they'll only have food accounts or something. And I'm like, okay, they do not need to see all this other stuff because, so yeah, I am enjoying that a lot. And I find that it's meaningful. Like, and agencies are looking, like if you're going to get your team together only one day a week, you're also looking for ways to maximize that time and do something kind of special and different, as opposed to having you just come and work from a desk. It's a bit more interactive for you in the agencies.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's a great learning opportunity too. Kind of keeping with the theme of me being new. It's just really nice to, be around my coworkers that have been in the business for a lot longer and kind of hear what they have to say and learn from them as well as the vendor presentations.
Well, you have the best coworkers, so.
I do. I'm biased, but I think they're all really
Yeah,
amazing.
they're pretty awesome. They're pretty awesome. Okay, well, we're kind of winding down, and I always ask the same two questions. Someday I'm going to go back and I'm going to listen to all the podcasts or go to the end of all the podcasts and listen to all the same answers again. And I've wanted to change the questions up, but people are always like, no, don't change them. So, what is your favorite thing to do on a Sunday?
Ooh, I would say go to the farmer's market. I live right near one. And so if it's in season, I like to go to the farmer's market. And I live in Chicago too. So going for walks by the lake after. This is all weather permitting.
Yeah.
But on a winter Sunday morning, probably go to like a local coffee shop or try something new for breakfast. And then if it's not too cold, go for a walk and enjoy the sunshine while we have it.
That's great. And then how about, although this might be hard for you because you're just starting your career, those who are a bit more jaded and on the other end of their career can fantasize about this answer. But if you weren't a producer, what would you be?
Ooh, I think I'd be a baker, like have my own bakery. I love to, like I said, cook and bake in my free time. I was one of those people that during the pandemic, I learned how to bake bread, and like maybe contributed to, using a lot of flour in the household. I think that would be what I would do if I wasn't in advertising.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Nicole, it was a pleasure to meet you when I met you. And I knew right away that I would love to have you on the podcast. Your enthusiasm is absolutely contagious. I'm sure everybody who works with you benefits from it. And I would love to interview you again in 6 months or so and see what you've learned along the way and what sort of insights you've picked up in the process. So thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a really busy end of year, but not too busy.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to be on, and I would absolutely love to do a follow-up. And this was so great. I learned so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Maybe what we'll do is we'll get you in your department and we can do like a group one.
Oh, that would be so fun.
I know I haven't done one of those yet. I've done it like 2 people, but I haven't done a whole department. I think that maybe we'll do that. We'll aim for that in the new year.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Okay, well, have a good afternoon.
Thank you. You too.